So now we'll get started. Okay. So, um, so first of all, welcome. So this is basically an exam practitioner study hour for Cloud Practitioner Essentials, which some of you are, may be hyper aware at this point, but just to make sure I'm thorough, I just want to make sure is that this is actually part of, oh God, where did that take me? Hold on one second. So it's interesting who fights the Google rankings this time. This is part of the most fundamental of the certifications, right? So, when you take the 5-week program for Cloud Excellence, right? That's giving you basically exposure to all of the Cloud Practitioner Essentials material, which is the black hexagon at the bottom, plus Systems Associates, System Operations Associates, which, by the way, is now mainly a trivia exam, but also has a lab portion as well. It's the only exam that has a hands-on lab portion. So that blue hexagon in the center, the SysOps Administrator, that is the only exam that has trivia plus labs. Okay, so we're not saying that just because you finish the 5 weeks that you're ready to take the SysOps Administrator, because to be frank about this, and Amazon doesn't say this enough, there are classes associated with each of these hexagons here, and taking the class will not let you pass the certification. Just in case anybody missed that, let me say it again. If you take Cloud Practitioner Essentials, which would govern that black hexagon down at the bottom, that's the class most commonly associated with a certification. It only gets you 60 to 80% of the material. You still actually have to spend about 5 hours a week for a number of weeks, depending on which level you're at, before you're ready to pass the certification. So hopefully, someone has said that other than me. If you haven't heard it, I'm telling you as an Amazon authorized instructor that is the case. And we all know that as AAIs.
And it still has a lab portion though, right?
So the SysOps Administrator has a lab portion, but none of the other exams of the 11 that are here, none of the other exams as of right now have a lab portion.
That freaks me out. I can't even believe that.
So just out of curiosity, Phil, why is that?
I don't know. It just seems like I take other exams and they have labs. Like maybe I'm thinking of the wrong thing. Like, are you thinking like interactive exam or lab, or is it like a scenario where it says blah, 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 and then you do this?
Yeah, no, they're all scenario. There's a bunch of scenario-based questions for everything above Cloud Practitioner. But the only one that has an interactive, like I need you to launch an EC2 instance.
Interactive. Yeah, there you go. That's a difference. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so like this isn't the certified Kubernetes administrator exam for those who have taken it. It is a 100% interactive hands-on exam. So this is not those type of exams. These exams are all scenario-based trivia exams. In other words, if I give you a scenario, can you identify what the right service to use is? Can you identify the right specific setting to turn on? Do you know the right architectural pattern to apply to the situation, depending on what level you're operating at? And just to say this, Cloud Practitioner is a level 1 exam, so it's a great place to start, even if you plan on taking another exam, because not only will you build your confidence, but you'll get a 50% discount off of any exams that you take after. They're like you get like 4 discount vouchers if you take Cloud Practitioner. So I'd highly recommend, even if you're going after another exam, to take Cloud Practitioner first.
You also get a free practice exam voucher, right?
Yeah, but honestly, Anil, I didn't mention that because those are junk, so I wouldn't use them, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're hot garbage from my perspective, and I'll show you why here in just a second. It's the only thing that they produce that I'm like, Amazon, would you please stop doing it? It's not even nearly as good as the practice exams I'm going to show you later.
All right.
So yeah.
I do have a question. So I have the SA Associates and the SA Professional, and the way that I've always thought about it is like the Associates is like you're doing like a deep dive of each individual service, and then the professional is like putting those services together and creating like a full architecture. So like how would you describe the Cloud Practitioner then?
So the Cloud Practitioner is actually more service centric. Like, do you know the services and how to use them? The Associates is more about like, how do you apply the services to very lean and simple scenarios? And so the Solutions Architecture Professional, because I have all of those certifications. The Solutions Architect Professional is the one that's like, hey, we're going to write a 2 double paragraph about what we want you to do, and here's the answer. So the Solutions Architect Pro and the DevOps Engineering Pro are much harder exams. They have a much larger kind of scenario.
Okay.
Yeah.
So based on what I've passed, you would say I should feel comfortable about knocking out Cloud Practitioner.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
I would say if you take the practice exams and you can knock out a 90 or 95%, you could just go straight to the practice exams because you have all the prior experience.
Okay.
Word of note that when your Solutions Architect Pro comes up for refreshment and you take it, it refreshes Cloud Practitioner, Solutions Architect Associates, and SA Pro all at the same time.
Okay. So everything in that column.
Will refresh if you take the highest level exam possible
Mhm.
available to you. Does that make sense? Anil?
Yeah. And then I know like other certs like Seg Plus and whatever, like they'll renew if you do service hours or whatever. Is there something like that with AWS?
No, not
It's
unless you
just,
want to become a hero or a champion with them.
okay. And it's mainly just to go back and retake the test once it expires.
Yes, but understanding, of course, that the test will be completely different in 2 to 3 years when it expires,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So you'll be taking a whole new set of information at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Like
yeah,
what-
I was just trying to get to if there was like, that's the only way.
It is the only way, other than becoming a hero or a champion for them. So AWS has the heroes or champions. I think you can exempt the exam, but don't quote me on that. You probably still have to take it. So
I mean, I feel like those people end up taking the exam because they have to teach other people. So,
hey, I end up taking the exam at least once or twice, once every 2 years, once every year, simply because I have to know what's on the exam. So same thing.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, even
So-
though I don't need to take it.
Okay, I won't take up any time on higher crap.
No,
now,
no,
so.
those are great questions, Anil. Totally perfect. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Any other questions about certification and why you might care about Cloud Practitioner? On this site, by the way, which is fully interactive, just a reminder that you can find like how much this costs, 90 minutes to do the exam, 65 questions. By the way, it usually ends up being 75 because Amazon likes to throw in 10 questions to test the waters. So much fun when you're like, don't know if a question actually is going to count towards your score. Good times. Anyway, so it might end up being 75 questions because sometimes they'll throw in fake questions in there just to see if people can actually answer them, just to whatever. Reminder that if you do decide to go schedule the exam, you're going to see me go through a very convoluted sign-in process. This is not customer obsession, Amazon, in case you ever decide to watch this video that I keep sending to you. So just so you know, once you log in, which you can use an Amazon account for, it will log you, once you log into Amazon, it'll actually log you into a site called Cert Metrics. And Cert Metrics is where you're actually going to go through and like schedule and register your exam. Do note that you can have multiple accounts. Like I have 2 accounts, one that has my specialties and one that has my standard certifications. So you'll see all the ones that I have active right there. And then at the home, actually, you can go and schedule a new exam. And so just a recommendation is that all of your available exams, which by the way, doesn't matter whether you have the certification or not, you can take it as many times as you want. I would typically schedule with Pearson VUE. You notice that Cloud Practitioner is listed here under CLF CO01. Notice that the certified SysOps is SOA CO02. CO02 is the one that has the hands-on labs. So you can't even take the old one, I think, anymore, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's not even available. Oh, there's one missing there. Anyway, moving on. So you schedule with Pearson VUE. So if you decide to go through this route and schedule, just to talk about the logistics here for a second, you can actually do this online and you can do it at a testing center. If you feel COVID safe, and let me be clear that I want you to do what's going to keep you healthy, safe. I'm not advocating anything else. I would recommend that you go to a testing center if you can. They are very COVID aware and they're like hyper friendly about that. If you don't feel comfortable and you want to do it at home, that's fine. But just remember, I'm just going to say this for those who are not paying attention. If you decide to do it at home, you need to clear your entire desk off and pull your desk away from your wall, because you have to take a picture of all 4 sides of your desk, and you can't have anything on your desk other than the single monitor, a keyboard, and a mouse for whatever it is that you're doing. If a dog walks in, or your 13-year-old son who likes to kind of come crash your party, I have a 13-year-old son, comes crash your party, they're going to give you a warning. And if it happens multiple times, they'll literally cancel the exam. You won't get your money back.
Oh,
Okay?
I've heard that they don't even give a warning.
No,
Like I've had.
They give a warning.
Oh,
At least
okay.
they did to me. They did to me. Like,
Oh, I had a friend who someone was talking from the other side of the door, like in the kitchen. And then they were like, hey, that's not allowed. So
Yeah, they gave me a warning. Like one time my mom showed up and let her little frou-frou dog into the house, even though I was like surprised. This is why you don't give your parents keys to your house, by the way. Anyway, Freud would have a field day with that. Anyway, so the dog walked in. They're acoustically fingerprinting the room, by the way, so they know if someone walks in or anybody does anything. So it's just really hard for them to proctor an exam in your house because they don't know what's going on. So they'll usually give you a warning, and then they'll let you know that if it happens multiple times. By the way, you can't cover your face. You can't go like this. You can't have any watches on. So like, let me just offer this. Please go to a testing center. Just make your life so much easier, unless you can really isolate yourself.
also, if something goes wrong at the testing center, they do allow you to retake versus if something happens at home.
That's true. The other thing is make sure you actually have the requisite photo IDs, and please show up to your appointment 30 minutes early if you're going to go online, or even if you're going to go in person, it'd be a good idea to show 15 minutes early, because you're going to have to walk through all this stuff like taking photos and submitting IDs and all this stuff. So I make it sound like draconian. Once you've done it once, it's super easy, but if you haven't done it once, you need to show up and have the experience. The other thing
in Iron Man, Obadiah calls Tony while in Afghanistan, saying that he couldn't.
I'm going to go ahead and mute you, Ian, assuming that wasn't actually for me. Okay, I just want you to know we've had a record 3 hot mics, which I don't even know that I've had one actually. A thing that's really good actually. It says a lot about the wildness of this particular cohort. Moving on. All right, so let's say you click yes to everything. One other thing that's Patrick, did you want to share something?
No, sorry, Mike.
No worries. So just know that once you select your exam language and all this stuff, there's something really important to show you. So for those of you who showed up today, Greg, if you send Greg Wagner an email, or just let Greg know that you are interested, Greg will send you an exam voucher for this exam. He's really excited about this actually. And so what will happen is that when you register for the exam, which is why you see me clicking through this screen right now, is that I need to show you where to put the exam voucher in, because otherwise it's going to be hard to find and you're going to be like, where do I put the exam voucher in? So let's say I'm going to take it on Saturday. You can take it at any time, by the way. They go 24 hours on this thing. Recommendation: choose a time where you feel fresh, where you feel like you can actually do math. You're not going to be doing math, but if you can do math, you could probably do the Cloud Practitioner exam. So make sure that you've got space for that. So let's say I want to do it around 3 o'clock on a Saturday. It would actually be a horrible time. And so once you get everything set up, you choose your time, everything's good inside the exam. If you click on proceed to checkout, at the very end is where you actually stick the voucher / promo code. So for those of you who are here who send Greg Wagner an email and say, hey, I want to sign up, when he sends you the voucher promo code, this is where you're going to stick it at the very end, right before you stick in your payment information. Any questions about that?
How long are the vouchers good for?
The vouchers are normally good for a year, but Greg specifically mentioned earlier that I think they're only good for
January
1st.
January 5th.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have
Are
that
Are
long.
we requesting those now, or are we waiting until the next session to request them?
Yeah, I jumped in. This is Greg. Yeah, so the next session, I don't want to just hand vouchers out to people if they really have no interest in doing them. There is a cost on our end to do that. So we really want to make sure people are interested. Here's one thing I neglected to share with you. They're referring to this as a double shot voucher, which is actually a really important thing for you to know, Michael, because if you fail the first time, you can take it again using that same voucher code. Yeah. So my suggestion is prep some, feel comfortable with it, get to a certain point, take the test in December. I don't know, Michael, you give them better recommendations in terms of times. You pass, wonderful. You fail, you learn. Why did I fail? Go back and lather, rinse, repeat with what Michael's going to teach you in terms of preparing for the exam. So it's kind of like there's a give and take on this. It's a special promotion with the 2-use voucher, but normally a voucher lasts for a year, but it's only 1 use. So you take the good with the bad. And in my opinion, this is actually good, because the reality is for the practitioners, it shouldn't take you a year time to prepare for this. So if you set your sights on January 15th with the methods that Michael will give you, you should do pretty darn well, most of you. So anyway, if you put in the time, you got to put in the time, and Michael will get into that. So anyway.
I got a question.
Go right ahead.
Is there like any time frame in advance you have to schedule it? Like to schedule it? Like, do I need to schedule like a month in advance, or can I just the day of say I want to do it now?
No, as long as there's a free slot, you can grab it anytime you want. I mean, you could literally try and sign up the next day if you wanted to. As long if there's times open, slots open, they'll put you in. But-
Would you recommend like once we get the voucher to go like enroll on a day? Like
I'm going to talk about that.
okay.
Yeah, give me a second, man. I'm going to talk about like when ideally you would sign up for the test. So if you're serious about it.
Yeah, like anything in life, if you set a date for something, it's like I need to lose 20 pounds by whatever date. It's like, okay, then I'm going to start on this day doing that. So anyway, but Michael will definitely share that with you.
Yeah. So by the time you leave, you'll have an idea of what it will take for you to pass. So, and then that will dictate when you should sign up for the test. I will tell you, it's probably better to pick the date as soon as I give you the time frame to go ahead and sign up. Barring like if you really want to do it, then wait, right? So we'll talk about that. Tariq, by the way, asked a great question. He said, "Is there a waiting period if you fail the first time?" Usually, there's a 14-day waiting period. So if you like failed on November 1st, you'd have to wait till November 15th to take the exam again. So just FYI. Your results, by the way, from the exam explicitly, like right then and there whether you passed or failed. Your actual score, they actually will tell you usually within 3 to 7 business days. So they'll send you a message and say, "Hey, log into the certification site to go see your results." So you can actually see your score on your exam. Any questions about the logistics of the exam, why the exam is important, why it's foundational, or any other questions around certification before we actually move into the program itself? No? Okay. Good. All right. So then let's talk about this. Obviously I'm not going to sign up for this because I don't really want to pay for it right now. Let's see. So only other thing to mention is that some of the links that we're going to share in the program guide today, they're still active, but just know that AWS is changing off of this website called aws.training, and they're moving to something called Skill Builder. It looks like Skill Builder is probably only going to be up for like a week or so, but they're encouraging people to, aws.training, this site that I'm looking at right now is actually only going to be up for like a week or two longer, it seems like, but it might, and they're moving everything over to Skill Builder. So just be aware that if you go to this site and it has a little banner at the top that says use Skill Builder, you're going to want to go to Skill Builder to do most of the certification links that we're about to show you, because we haven't updated everything en masse yet. But almost everything else works. But if you decide to take a class, I would come here to Skill Builder and do it. Skill Builder is now AWS's new central hub for all training, and they're pouring all of their energy into centralizing training into this Skill Builder site. So you're going to see it become a lot more important, right? And if you don't have a login to aws.training or towards Skill Builder, that's fine. If you have an Amazon account, like a personal Amazon account, you can actually just use that to log in. You don't have to use your booze email. Make sense? Cool. All right, just wanted you to be aware. All right, so first of all, let's talk about the potential study program first. And kind of give you an idea of like kind of some prerequisites or some things to think about. So where are you? There you are. So as part of our like normal session, which usually includes like these fabulous people, but today it's just Greg and I, is that this is usually what we talk about when we talk about certification, is that we talk about like things to think about, like your prerequisites, finding, your targeted certification, all those pieces. So let me walk through this just briefly to give you an idea of like the different things that we want to look at to make sure you're prepared to take the exam. Obviously there's going to be a bunch of cultural references in here because, why not? A little Disney, little WandaVision. Okay. So first one is that if you're already in the cloud excellence, tech excellence, cloud engineering class, I always get those backwards. You've already met the prerequisites. You already consider yourself technical, or you want a technical career. You already are familiar with either command line, PowerShell, or programming language. And when I say familiar, I'm not talking about a feature programmer. I mean, like, you understand what variables are, You know what conditionals are. If you don't, just know that you might want to get more and more into that to just kind of make that sure you meet that particular prerequisite. And obviously you want to know what you're going after, right? And that's really the second step, other than gratuitous Disney pictures, is we want to choose our exam. For us, it's easy. We're going after Cloud Practitioner for this session. So that's where we're going to start, right? So just know, by the way, that there's tons of classes associated with these certifications that are in the full list of Amazon courses. So if you ever want to go out to aws.training or Skill Builder, you can actually find a full list of all the classes that you could potentially take. There are classes associated with the certification, and you heard me say this earlier, I'm just going to repeat it. The classes alone will not get you past the certification, right? So that's why we're having this conversation. So the first thing is that you need a guide. Now, AWS has ramp up guides that have been co-authored by AWS and a bunch of AIs. And then of course we have our program guide, which I'm going to show you here in just a second. Just know, just for future reference, is that we will always help you figure out how to pass the certification. So you can always talk to us, especially because we are in a deep partnership with Booz. But know that you can actually just go out and grab a ramp up guide for your particular role or a particular technology. So this is the ramp up guide link, and you can just type in AWS ramp up guides. It will literally take you there. And for example, if we're going to do Cloud Practitioner, if you download this guide, just as an example, it's going to give you active links to a bunch of resources that you probably want to look at in order to be able to take the test, which is actually listed down here at the bottom. So here's the exam right down here at the bottom. But these links include things like self-paced labs, some of which, just to say that most of you have done already. If you've taken system operations, you've done some variation, but there's other good stuff here if you feel like you need to round out, like you didn't spend enough time with load balancers. But also know that you, as part of our cohort with WebH Solutions and Booz, you have access to this from the Quick Labs site already, because most of these digital trainings and self-paced labs, they'll take you to Quick Labs. So you've already been exposed to this. But just know this gives you a very regimented way to look at the things you might want to checklist one at a time in order to prepare for the Cloud Practitioner exam. So this is one possible certification guide. I'm going to show you another one that we have as well that's a little shorter. But this whole thing is absolutely really good. And just know that sometimes the links don't work, but like 90% of them do. The only thing I don't recommend is that there's a bunch of sample questions down here, like an exam practice. I wouldn't do that. They're not great. And, it's kind of known that they're not great among the AIs. So, we've talked to Amazon about it. The ones that we're going to show you are way better than the ones that are here. These aren't useless. They don't give you the rights and wrongs and the cheat sheets that you need to take it to a deeper level. So this is the ramp up guide. So this is a great way to get some structure depending on which certification or role you're going after. Do note that, like the developer guide, for example, will go after developer associates and DevOps engineering. The operations guide will go after system operations associates, and it will go over after DevOps engineering. So if we look at these guides as an example, they are a lot deeper and longer than, say, Cloud Practitioner, because Cloud Practitioner is the first certification. So just know that these guides are out here, can be an overwhelming amount of information, but at least when it comes to the Cloud Practitioner guide, it can be a great place to start. Okay. If you're in a later role and someone starts asking you questions about containers and you need to deep dive into containers, there's a guide here for containers. Someone says you need to do storage, there's a guide here for storage. So just know you want to make sure that you understand that there's ramp up guides out here that can help you if you need to ramp up with AWS on a particular technology. Okay. Questions about that? Our program guide looks remarkably similar to that. The difference is that we have included the practice exams and links that would make sense to us. We break it out into blocks. So for example, this would be like 1 week where you basically go in and do an assessment to find out if you're ready to take the Cloud Practitioner exam. So like Anil, what we were talking earlier, you might actually want to take this practice exam that I'm going to recommend. If you can get a 90 or 95 on it, then you're ready to take the Cloud Practitioner exam. You don't need any further study.
All right.
So this, yeah. So I'm going to share this in both the base camps out with both of the cohorts so you can have access to it. It won't have any dates in it particularly, but I just want you to know that each of these blocks represents a week, right? So for example, you've already taken Cloud Practitioner, so this week is gone. All you actually need to do is that you need to do this week, this week, this week, and this week. So that's 4 more weeks of study at 5 hours a week for you to get ready for the Cloud Practitioner exam. That's all you need. But you have to do 5 hours a week of 4 weeks and whatever math you want to do. So that adds up to 20 hours. If you want to do 2 weeks of 10, that's fine. You can figure the rest of it out. My point being is that you could take it by December 1st if you wanted to, or what is today? The 20th? I mean, you could take it before Thanksgiving if you really wanted to, if you wanted to bust it down. But it's 5 hours a week of study for 4 weeks for where all of you are at who are part of the CET section. That's all you're going to need. Now, notice that most of this is exam practice. So these last 3 weeks are all exam practice, because that's all you're really missing at this point for the Cloud Practitioner exam, is that you just need to practice your ability to recall the information. Because I'm sure all of you memorized every single bit of information that we just fire hosed you with, did you not? No comments?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got it all down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just know that like these practice exams would be test your ability to recall and make that information a certainty, because it's not good enough for you to just have seen it. You need to be able to answer questions about it.
Do you have something like this if we feel like we don't want to gun for the Cloud Practitioner, and if we want to go straight to DevOps, do you have a blocked out section or PDF like this for the other ones as well that you will be providing for us?
I don't know. That depends on how much Bitcoin you have, Anil. Right. If you want me to share like a more advanced guide, I'm just kidding.
So I don't have Bitcoin, but I have Ethereum. How's that?
Oh, I got Ethereum too. That's funny. You know, we used to give Bitcoin away as a consolation prize. Who's laughing now? You know,
Yeah. There's a picture that's was like first place was like a Visa gift card, second place was like a basket, and then third place was like 5 Bitcoin. And this was like for some tournament that was like years ago.
Yes, that's what we did. I was part of those things. We would give away Bitcoin as the consolation prize. Now who's laughing, right? Because 5 Bitcoin would be what, $360,000, $300,000. Yeah. So yeah. Do we accept Dogecoin? Only if you pronounce it correctly. So yes, we do have guides for other sections. That would be on a one-on-one basis, because we're not going to en masse post that. So just send me an email if you want something like that, and we'll be glad to share it. And we'll give it to you on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, so if you want something for DevOps engineering, we have something. We just can't post that en masse. So, okay. Any other questions? All right, so in the morning when you go to Basecamp, you're going to have this sitting inside your Basecamp for you to take a look at, okay? All right. So let me rehash this to make sure you understood me. 4 weeks of 5 hours a week for you to get ready for a Cloud Practitioner. Most of that time is going to be spent in practice exams. So let's talk about practice exams. So the main site that we recommend is Tutorials Dojo. And I'm going to show you why. And do note that we are obviously providing people access to Tutorials Dojo for those who showed up today. So let me obviously sign in.
And I will I'll upload instructions tomorrow on how you start the process of getting your license for Tutorials Dojo. You have to create your own account, but then within 24 hours, they will post a license to your account so that you can access it for free. We pay for the license. The company the company, John Bonzo's company, they're actually in the Philippines. So therefore, if you're posting something during our day, it's their night, so they won't see it. But within 24 hours of setting up your account, which Michael will show you how to do, that following day, you should have access to doing the practice exams on your own. So there's a bit of a process to it. Unfortunately, I can't sign you people up for it and assign you a token. They have to do it.
Yeah.
But you do not pay for it. We pay for it.
Yeah. So we'll take care of it for you.
Yeah.
But it is a 24-hour turnaround when you submit your email address. So as Greg said, we'll make sure the instructions are in docs and files. We'll point that out. Cameron will raise it up again to you tomorrow. So for those who are interested in following up on it. Okay. So here's why these practice exams. By the way, Greg mentioned his name. His name is John Bonso. You can't actually find him on Udemy. He's not in the Udemy for Business that you have as part of your access through Booz Allen. So unfortunately, he's not available there. I would say that the ones here are a little bit more robust than the ones in Udemy. But just to say this, Udemy has a mobile app. So if that's important to you, you might want to stick with the ones in Udemy. We're only going to be purchasing the ones that are here on Tutorials Dojo. So if you want to do the ones on Udemy, that's going to be out of pocket for you. So just FYI. Now, why John? Why not Stephen, Stefan Merrick? Why not all the others that we know are out there that are pretty amazing? Because there's some really good people. Well, first of all, John has an atactic memory and actually works with AWS to actually make sure that things are above board. And so his questions are the most accurate that I've ever seen without crossing any boundaries. This is not a test dump, nor is it illegal. Make sure we're clear. We would not advocate that anyway. But the cool thing is that when you go take John's questions, so like, for example, which of these is about technical response times of the enterprise support plan? So that would be 15 if business critical system, and I think it's an hour for production systems. Let's check and see if that's right. This right. And so what happens is that John not only gives you the correct answer, gives you a full table as to what the other options are as far as comparisons for the question. He'll tell you why the other answers are wrong, which is really cool. Then he'll tell you the source documentation where he got the actual answer from. And on most questions, this is probably an exception. If there's a cheat sheet or some kind of video that will give you a further in-depth explain, when I say a cheat sheet, it's just a subject aggregation sheet. He will share all that so that if you keep missing questions on billing, you can then dive in deeper and just like spend some time getting stronger at that. And so that's what these test questions offer you, is the rights, the wrongs, the source, and then an additional deep dive if you need it in order to be able to get this right. So thus far, I'm gonna say thus far, this is not a guarantee. Everybody who's followed our plan to about 80 or 90% like compliance and has gone to take the exam, they passed it on first try. Remember, that's not a guarantee, but just thus far, just to say this, that's a great track record, right? Is that, people take the exam and do this kind of process, it goes swimmingly well for them. Plus, not only that, you feel really confident walking through the exam. Now, in this particular case, you can probably see on the left-hand side that I've got I've got 5 sets of questions that I could choose from. Our recommendation is that when you follow our certification guide, is that you take one of these sets of questions repeatedly until you can get a 90 or 95%. And then you do the second one until you can get a 90 or 95%. Now, people usually complain at this point and say, well, Michael, am I not just memorizing the answers? Yes, you are memorizing the answers. That's what we want. We want you to memorize the answers to questions about AWS services, because this is, and I'm not minimizing it, it's a trivia exam, right? They're going to ask you what guard duty does. They're going to want you to know what shield is. They're going to want you to know, or is it per second or per hour billing, and what's the difference? These are the kind of questions that you get asked by the practice exam. So I want you to take the same set of the same test again and again until you get 90 or 95 percentile, and then move on to the second one. And you do 2 or 3 of those. And if you're getting 90s or 95s on 2 or 3 exams, you're ready to go take the exam. And
obviously, from Michael's description, these are multi-use exams, and they're good. I think the license is good for 2 years, which is kind of overkill for a practitioner certification, but yeah, okay, you have yours through 2024. So anyway, you can beat these up over and over and over again until you're getting 90 is kind of the game plan.
Yeah. And John, by the way, will update these consistently. So whether just to say this, he does it on Udemy, he does it here as well. If the exam changes significantly or they add new material, John will update them and you'll still retain access to these exams. So you'll get updates for free for the next 3 years, right? Now, if they release a whole new version of the exam, he's going to publish that as a separate product, just so you know, because everybody did when they published a new one. But buying this exam, if it stays the same for the next 2 or 3 years, they just update content, John will update it so it makes sure it matches. Good. Questions thus far?
I have to jump off. The only thing that I want to mention is that we're excited about offering this to you folks because it's something we want to do going forward for these programs. But with that said, just don't lose sight of that. The most important thing for you guys to focus on right now is the team projects and the other things that are going on within the program. And this is kind of like extra beyond that on your time. So I know the trainers will make sure of that because it's important to them as well that you guys get through the project. So I hope you find this valuable, but also just to know that it does need to kind of be done as a side thing outside of, you know, doing a really great job on all your projects. So that's all I wanted to say. Enjoy the rest of the session, and I'll be checking in again.
All right, awesome.
Thank
Thanks, Greg.
you, Mr. Wagner.
You're welcome. You guys have a great time.
Okay, so let's talk about the rest of this, and then we'll come back around to the practice exams. And what we'll do is we'll do a bunch of practice exam questions together if you want, so you can get a feel for what's on the exam. All right, so step one was for us to meet prerequisites. Step two was for us to pick the exam that we're going to go after, which in this case is Cloud Practitioner. Step three, I talked about either the ramp up guide or the certification guide, which is that spreadsheet that I just showed you, which is going to be posted into Basecamp. And by the way, I'm going to post this presentation into Basecamp as well, so you can have all the access to all the links and everything that we're talking about in this presentation. You're going to have access to it. All the links work. Step four is to actually do what it says. Sorry, did someone have a question? Go ahead, Phil.
I was just gonna say thanks for doing that.
Oh yeah, of course. We want you to have enough information and not have to really think about it. You can just follow it, right? Step four, obviously, is do what the guide says. So if it says do the practice exams, do it. You might say it's like, Michael, that's silly. Why did you put that as a step? And it's like, you'd be surprised. We have tons of information at our fingertips. Like, we know how to lose weight, and we know how to get healthy, and we know how to, like, you know, get really good at Bash, and we know how to learn a programming language. The problem is that this is the age of distraction, right? We have too much information. There's too many entertainment vectors. And so what we focus on is really how we define, those are the choices that define our destiny, really, somewhere, not to make it like legendary or whatever. And so just know, like, I have to say things like this because people get distracted. But if you finish it, right, you'll actually achieve it. And once you have the certification, that lasts you for 3 years, and then you'll be part of the mainstream of cloud at that point in time. So that's why I'm like, hey, step four, if you're going to get a guide, you should probably follow it, right? So, all right, other things to know, other than my girlfriend calling me in the middle of a certification. So just know that there's a whole list of hands-on, kind of like get some hands-on for free. Most of these you have all already seen, especially if you did system operations with me. I already went through all this. If you didn't do system operations with me, I'm sorry. What that means, though, is that you now have access to all of this other stuff, right? So just know that Quick Labs, EC2 Spot workshops, ECS workshops, EKS workshops.aws or awsworkshops.io, those are all amazing places for you to go get some hands-on experience. So just know that if you're not feeling comfortable, you don't need to feel comfortable in the console for Cloud Practitioner. It's a trivia exam. Get comfortable at the associates level and above, but don't worry about that with Cloud Practitioner. But if you really need to learn a concept by getting your hands on it, then here's some links for you to get like specific services under your belt. If you're not finding the service that you want to get your hands on, come talk to me. At present, I have 120 unlisted hidden workshops that AWS refuses to index or publish in some form or fashion. That probably covers almost everything that even like Transit Gateway. You want a lab on Transit Gateway? I actually have one for you that you could do inside your own account. So stuff like that. So just let me know if you need more hands-on experience. Meanwhile, use these links if you're feeling like you need more. All right, step 6, I just talked about the practice exams. This repeats what I said. Do 3 of the practice exams, step number 2, until you can consistently get 95% on 3 of them. You might say, Michael, why 95%? Because I do like talking to myself a lot. Sometimes I refer to myself as other Michael. So 95% because you're going to lose 10 points. For those of you who have ever watched Archer, it's a great show. So you're going to use 10 points because of stress. You get 95% on these practice exams. First of all, it's not going to be the exact same question. Second of all, you're going to be stressed. Everyone's stressed when they walk in the test. I've taken the test like a million times. I get stressed when I take the test. So we ask for a 95 percentile because we want you to be that good, because you're going to lose points walking in. You only need like a 70 to 75 to pass the exam, but we want you to shoot for 80s and 90s if possible. Okay. So that's why we're insisting on 95 percentile. don't go in and get 80s and then like come back to me and be like, hey, Michael, I did everything you said. I got 80s on my practice exams and then I failed on the first try. Please don't do that to me. First of all, I'll shed some tears, I'll cry, and then I'll be like, hey, what did you get on the exams? And it'll be like 80. It's like 80. I said 95s. This is what you need to do. Right? So there you go. 95s. That's what we want on these exams. Here's a link to all of the exams for the core exams and the specialty exams. This is all going to be in the PowerPoint. It's going to be inside of your Basecamp tomorrow morning. Okay. Now, step 7 says schedule the exam. It really should be step 0. So for those of you who love the pressure, you should probably sign up as soon as I told you that basically you could get this done by December 15th, which is accurate. Wouldn't that be a nice Christmas present? You got a certification under your belt. By the way, Booz Allen really loves certifications. So, you know, just to say this is if you get a certification within your first thing, your career manager is going to love it, right? So just throw that out there. Really love that face. And last thing is that you're going to finish a 5-week class with us, and then you're going to spend the next 4 weeks afterwards getting your cloud practitioner certification. I'm just going to tell you right now, for those of you who don't realize it, you have now entered an industry that is both broad and deep, and it's getting broader and deeper, right? So you may have heard me repeatedly say that every year I have to drop a skill and add a skill, even if it's just the beginnings of a skill. So just know that once you acquire AWS, you're going to have to maintain it. This is not one of these fire and forget skills. This changes. If you ever sign up for their blog, they're making like, I don't know, 10, 20 changes to their services a day. They're probably making a product release like once a month, you know, maybe more frequently, depending on if you look at the whole set of services. So just know that this is going to be an infinite game. If you make this a finite game, then you're going to be one of those people that I'm talking to 20 years from now who's looking me in the face and going, yeah, I never really learned cloud because I didn't see the value in it, right? Right? And let's not do that, right? This is an industry that is going to require you to continually keep your skills up. So just remember that once you achieve the certification, you're going to want to spend at least 15 minutes a week finding out what's going on with AWS. Cool? Phrasing. Thank you. All right. So any questions about any of those steps or processes? No, not that. That's just overwhelming. Let's do this. About prereqs, choosing your exam, ramp up guide, do what the guide says, get hands-on, practice exams, schedule your exam, and never stop learning. Anything about those pieces that you need to dive into? Cool. Let's do some practice exam questions so you can get a feel. Okay, so we were already here, so let's just stick here. Let's go for question number 13. Okay. So just so you know, I'm going to do a little bit of analysis for the first few questions, and then I'm just going to let you go. And by the way, it's either A, B, C, D, or E, or 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. I don't care. It would be great if you could post this in the chat, so that way everybody could see it, right? So in this particular question, among the following payment options, which of the following can you choose when you purchase a standard or convertible reserved instances? Select 2. Interesting. A and C. So I got one from Jonathan. Anybody else want to cast a vote? Let's see, 1 and 5, all upfront reserve payment. I see another A and C. So let's go for A and C. Because I see, oh, well, there's an A and D, but I got more votes for A and C, so I'm going to stick with that one. So there we go. There's another one, right? So with standard or convertible reserve instances, you can do either pay up front, you can do a partial, like you can pay it all up front, you can do a partial payment, or you can do no up front, which is kind of interesting, right? So the other pricing, deferred reserve payments and bill me later payments are not supported for reserve instances. Those are actually other payment mechanisms. Notice here, by the way, that here's the reference source material for his answers, and then he has a little video on EC2 if you want to dive into it. Good. By the way, most people I know actually do a no upfront payment, but it's so much more cost effective if you do a partial and or even a all up front. Just know that you probably want to do the math on that if you're ever involved in those kind of discussions to find out what the actual breakpoint is as far as savings goes. But typically most people do no upfront and they're like, hey, Amazon, just give me a discount. All right, next question. Okay, according to Amazon, because that's what that should say, which of the following are advantages of cloud computing? What did Amazon say was some of the advantages of cloud computing? I think it's definitely number 5, right? So one strategy to consider here, by the way, is remove the ones that you know are false. For example, you know that 5 is false because you don't get discounts on Amazon.com because you're using AWS. Lower economies of scale is actually an anti-pattern, so that seems like that's probably off. And so we're left with these kind of 3 right here, of which these 2 are actually variations on each other. So we know it's probably one of these. And since we have to choose 2, let's go ahead and choose speed and agility, right? So then the next one is that what's the meaning of capital expense versus like variable expense, right? Capital expense, by the way, is typically associated with the purchasing of hardware. Now, isn't that the one thing that Amazon kind of takes away from us, is that we don't have to buy servers anymore? Anyone who's ever been involved with that, by the way, probably remembers it as a very painful experience and doesn't want to repeat it. So knowing that capital expense is probably equivalent to hardware, we're pretty sure that Amazon wants you to trade buying hardware for whatever this is. By the way, that used to be operational expense and they replaced it with variable expense because if you've ever gotten an AWS bill, it does change based on your usage. So I saw that a bunch of you put A and C on there. And correct. Now, one thing to note here is that Amazon does this quite a bit on their, AWS does this quite a bit on their tests, is they'll put 2 or 3 answers that all look the same and they'll have little variations on them. And you have to know what the little variations are, which is why we have you take the practice exams, because they do get subtle. These are not clear-cut questions. They will run you right into a gray area. So just know that that's what the practice exams are for, is to give you practice at answering those kind of questions.
One thing that I've also seen that they do is like sometimes they'll throw in like a new service and it's the answer even though you don't know the service, but based on the other services that you should know, like it's default to that one, right? So that's also
Yeah.
one thing that I've seen.
Yeah, that's a good point, Neil. That's why the exclusion process that I started doing, where I was like, hey, it's not massive discounts on Amazon's website. You can sometimes figure out the answer just by excluding the things that you know are not the answer. So that's a good point, right? So making
Yeah.
sure that you're following both methods to make sure you can prove it both ways. It's a little bit like in math where you're like solving for X, make sure you can solve it both ways. And then you know for certain that you got the answer, right?
Yeah, and like the one that I had before was like on snow cone. And I'd never learned snow cone before I took that exam. So,
Well,
but
and
based on
also
the other questions,
it could be one of the 10 questions they throw in that are not real also.
that's
So,
true.
yeah. So sometimes it'll be like a 75 question test because they'll throw in 10 questions that are not real.
Hey, Michael, quick question. How long do you have to take the actual exam? Is it 75 questions? What's the time limit?
So it's 90 minutes. So yeah, so here you've got 90 minutes to take the exam and it's 65 questions. Well, 75 technically if they throw them in there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. This is a straightforward question. You have to know the service, this service pretty straight up. Which type of ELB allows you to forward the incoming request to a target group with a Lambda function as the target? There was only one, by the way, that could handle that. So classic load balancers do figure sometimes, especially on the essay exam, but not so much on the Cloud Practitioner exam. So the classic load balancer typically is not going to be the answer, although some, depends on the question. The NLB is just a very simple load balancer, so it can't really do anything sophisticated. And a gateway load balancer is used for what? What's a gateway load balancer used for? If you like were to describe it in a word, what is it used for mainly? I don't know is an acceptable answer, by the way. Yeah, so gateway load balancers are mainly for third-party appliances, but they're mainly used for security appliances. So they're like taps, they're like inline taps. So deep packet inspections, all that scanning, that kind of thing. That's what they're really used for. So really, most of you already knew the answer because the ALB is the only one that has that level of brains to it, right? That level of complexity. So, of course, I sometimes I've said that, and then the question is like, no, it's the gateway load balancer, and I'm like, really? I don't think that's the right answer. So, yeah. Good. All right, let's do a few more and then I'll let you go for the day. What's the best way to keep track of all activities made in your AWS account? What is that? First of all, let's start with the ones that are absolutely we know are wrong, right? First of all, using LDAP authentication on your account. I'm not sure how that's going to track anything. Don't get me wrong. Authentication is nice. MFA logging. Can you even enable MFA logging? I know you can log whether people are using MFA, but I don't know that MFA is actually a thing. By the way, what does CloudWatch actually monitor in the system? Someone tell me.
Metrics.
That's exactly right. That's the perfect word, Tim. It's metrics. Metrics for services, metrics for operating systems, metrics for anything. So really, it's about creating a multi-region trail in CloudTrail. Even if you just didn't know it cold, like a bunch of you did already, right? You knew that CloudTrail tracks all API calls. This question is actually a little squishy because there could have been other proper answers, but CloudTrail is the only service that tracks all API calls made against your account.
I might just be wrong. I for some reason I remember AWS config. Was that something that you would get information on like account activity?
See, that's where it gets squishy, Tim, is that if they were like, hey, we want to track all state changes or all
state changes. That's
configuration changes inside your environment. That's where, but they're not qualifying it. They're just saying all activities. Config actually could be a way, but just to say this, CloudTrail is a lot more comprehensive. CloudTrail will capture everything API call made against your account. Config needs to be configured for certain things, but it's squishy. So if config was there as an answer, that might be a little confusing, just to say that. I'm over here assuming that we've got the right answer, which we do. Yeah, so that's a good call, is that if config was in the mix, the question might need a little bit more clarification, but they will do that. So yeah. Okay. What's the minimum support plan that will provide you access to all of the trusted advisor checks, like the best practice checks? This one, unfortunately, you just got to know. They tear it out. It's basic, developer, business, and then enterprise. So this one, this is just cold, straight memorization. You just got to know that enterprise is the key. Actually, it's business. See, this is what happens.
Kidding.
I get all arrogant about it, and I'm like, yeah, it's not going to be enterprise. So business apparently gives you all the business checks, not just enterprise. So, and here's why, right? Full set of checks for enterprise. Developer only gives you 7 core checks. And I believe actually that for basic, you only get like maybe 3 or 4 checks. But if you buy any of the plans that are basically provide production support, which is business or above, then you actually get all of the trusted advisor checks. So notice when I say production support or above, they're not listing it here, but like it's like an hour response time on your production inventory for business and above.
So it's business?
Yeah, it's business. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. What, you didn't catch my mistake, Frederick? I thought I was dramatic enough so that you caught that. Yeah, so business and above. Not developer, not basic. Business or enterprise will give you the full set of checks for trusted advisor. All right. So Blank is an online software store that helps customers find, buy, and immediately start using its software and services that run on AWS. Again, another slightly squishy question, although there is only really one clear answer for this one. This isn't like the other one. So I see a bunch of you put D. This really ideally would say third-party software and services that run on AWS, not just software and services, because that could imply AWS services. But I've been wrong before. Let's find out. So is that this is where you would grab like checkpoint firewalls, Cisco stuff, Fortinet. Like if you wanted a third party, you wanted TIBCO, you wanted like an enterprise service bus, you wanted to grab Mongo for MongoDB. Like this is the marketplace is where you would find those AMIs. And be careful if you use the marketplace, because some of those come not only with the cost of the machine, they come with licensing costs, and they bill your AWS account. And some of the license costs are per hour. So just be mindful if you ever decide to use a third party, read the terms and conditions, because you could end up with extra charges. It's probably not going to seem like a lot, but if you run 3 checkpoint firewalls and they're charging you 50 cents an hour and you run them for 730 hours in a month, you can do the math. I said 3 checkpoint firewalls. It would take like 50 to really matter. Okay, last one. Which service in AWS is best used for data analytics and data warehousing? What? When we say analytics and warehousing, what is the data warehousing service inside of AWS? Not the data storage service, not the NoSQL flagship database service, not Amazon's made up Postgres and MySQL RDS service, which is, by the way, I just described S3, DynamoDB, and Aurora. So the answer is Redshift. I think most of you knew that already. Redshift's been around forever, by the way. It's based on Postgres 8.1. And I think the largest cluster I've ever seen is the 3.2 petabyte data warehouse, which was a lot. So good. Redshift clusters. So all the details there. So hopefully this gives you a good feel, a preview of like how these practice exams can help you prepare for the exam. They have practice exams for every single certification. All of them are gold. So all of them work. So just know that you're in great hands to sign up for this. So in your base camps, I'm going to put the program certification guide for Cloud Practitioner. Greg is going to put in the sign up process to get access to Tutorials Dojo. For those of you who seriously would actually like to take the exam before the end of the year, send Greg Wagner an email, tell him that you're interested, and he will get you signed up for a voucher and you can take the test for free. And like you said, special, done by January, but a double shot. So you take 4 weeks, you could get there. If you somehow fumble and fail, which we do, I walked in all swanky for my first test and failed it horribly. Just know that you get a second chance on it. So it's greg.wagner at webagesolutions.com. Post that in. So that's Greg's email. So just let him know. We're going to do another one of these sessions on Monday. If the same people show up, I'm literally just going to run through exam questions, just so you know. I'm not going to run through the whole thing again. So if the same people like show up, I'm just actually going to run through exam questions to kind of like get practice. That's something that we do quite frequently. Other than that, anyway, the floor is open for questions.
I was going to ask if the PowerPoint was going to be available to us, but you had answered that already.
Yeah, it's going to be posted out as well.
So pretty much just go through all of those, as many of those links as possible, and you'll be good to go.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Do you have a workshop for Amazon Kendra?
Let's see. Do I have a workshop for Amazon Kendra? Oh, I don't think I do, actually. Who's using Kendra?
I will now. I searched it up.
Now that you said something about it, Forrester, I'm going to use Kendra. I don't think I have one for Kendra. I'm shocked at some of the services. That's like asking me if they have a workshop for Cloud Search. I don't even know why that service is out there. It should just be retired, right? I don't have Kendra actually. So
what about Beanstalk?
I don't really have workshops on Beanstalk per se. I have some where you can start Beanstalks. The main reason is that Beanstalk's just a wizard to EC2, right? That's all. It's a wizard to, load balancing in EC2. So people don't really have workshops on that. But Chris, if you send me an email, I'll find one, because I might have one. I just off the top of my head, I don't know if I have one or not. A Kendra, I know I don't have.
They have a quick lab on blue-green deployment that covers Beanstalk. So
yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, that could be useful. Yeah, because blue-green deployment is really easy in Beanstalk. Cool. All right, well, it's 5:01. Technically, we're done. Thanks for hanging out. If you want to come by next
Thanks.
Monday, please do so. Otherwise, have fun with your projects. And by the way, you can talk to me after we're done with the Cloud Excellence. I'm still talking to people from 2 years ago who took these classes. So
Okay.
don't feel like once we're done, we can't ever talk again about certification. So just send me an email if you want to chat. All right,
Thanks,
everyone.
Mr. Forrester. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Much appreciated. This is Tim here.
Yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you.
good. Hey, Tim.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
No
Thank
worries,
you.
Jared. You were part of a team of hot mics. It's all good.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
There were so many hot mics.
So many.
I,
It's
I
over
want to
the
know
top.
what that Iron Man video was about. They were
I
doing
am
a
too.
deep dive, right?
I was like, is that like Iron Man like 1 and he was like peeling it back? I was
That's
like,
what it sounded like. I was like,
Jebediah
you're a little
Stane
late
was
to the party
mentioned.
when it comes to that movie.
Yeah. But maybe there's more secrets in there that we need to deep dive
That's
into.
true. That's
you
true.
know?
An Easter egg that they just discovered.
Well, it'll be remastered, right? Because that movie's like 13 years old now.
Yeah,
Shockingly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next time.
Yeah. All right. Take
All
it easy, dude.
All right, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you.